here shortly. Thank you. All right, so let's go over a few housekeeping items. We encourage you to select speaker view and rename yourself if you haven't already to include your organization's name. We have enabled captioning, so if you would like to use that, please click the Show Captions option on the navigation bar, which is typically located at the bottom of your screen to use this feature through the presentation. Throughout this presentation, we ask that you please remain on mute. You can submit questions or comments within the Zoom chat box anytime. My colleague Isabella, who I will introduce to everyone here shortly, she will be monitoring the chat box. So as you have questions throughout the presentation, please add them there, but also note that we will have time at the end for questions and answers as well. And then speaking of questions, if you have any after this workshop, please do not hesitate to contact me. You can either email me or call me with your questions. Additionally, this meeting is being recorded and it will be posted on our website next week. Okay, so here is a snapshot of our agenda today. The majority of the time will be spent going over the safety net requests for proposals. Again, welcome. My name is Tara B. Hannon, and I'm a program officer in the Community Investments Department for the Greater Cincinnati Foundation. I have the excited privilege of managing Safety Net and Accessible Communities RFPs, which is Request for Proposals, and I also support GCF's Racial Justice Fund. Now, I will be guiding the grant decision process, but I'm also your resource again for any questions about the grant opportunity, including if your organization and our program is eligible. Hannah Hilditch is our Community Strategies Coordinator. Hannah interacts with every application that we receive. She is our technical expert for our online grant making platform, which is called Founded. And later in the presentation, Hannah will guide you through the Founded platform. Also joining us, as I mentioned earlier, is Isabella Free. Isabella is also a program officer here at GCF, which many of you probably already know. She is my supporting partner for this opportunity as we anticipate a tremendous response. So next, I will share a quick overview of our grant making here at GCF. As a community foundation, GCF invests in a more vibrant and equitable region, in part by grant making to some of you, our community partners, doing the work. We make grants in a variety of ways, including concentrated investments in our community leadership focus areas, through requests for proposals, donor advised funds, and designated funds. We actively build equity into our own philanthropic practices by using a trust-based philanthropy approach. The community leadership grants are dedicated to GCF's three key priority areas, being, as you see at the top of your screen, economic mobility, affordable housing, and racial justice. This portfolio approach to grant making allows the foundation to pursue ambitious, innovative, large-scale solutions that address our region's most critical challenges year-round. The majority of our requests for proposals, or again RFPs, take place on a biennial schedule, making their grant cycle every other year. Specific to the Safety Net RFP, awarded recipients this round will be eligible to apply for renewal funding next year in 2025. The next time the grant will be offered to all eligible organizations will be July of 2026. The Educational Success RFP, which is also denoted on the screen with an asterisk, is an opportunity, also has an opportunity for renewal funding during its kickoff year. And you can see the dates on the screen of when each RFP will kick off. We also offer mini grants for kids programs and giving circles. Now, another grant program that isn't displayed is what's called our private foundation umbrella. And though those community, and although those community I'm sorry, pause for that. I was going to say, although the Community Investments Department, does not oversee those grants, they are another great opportunity for our community partners. So if we haven't already, we'll put a link for those grants in the chat box for you to peruse and check out. Next, I'm going to share with you a tool that you can use, which you can find other grant opportunities that your project may be aligned with. And that tool is called our Alignment Guide. And it is the first and best place to start for all nonprofits interested in exploring our funding resources. When you complete the alignment guide with your described project in mind, it will generate results for any GCF funding sources that your project might be eligible for. You can use this tool 24/7. I do recommend that you complete the alignment guide for each project that you have in mind. So once for each project, because different programs or different types can generate different eligibility results. And we'll put a link to the alignment guide in the chat. Now let's go to why we're all here today. We're going to talk more about the Safety Net RFP. Organizations supporting people at their lowest points, helping them get back on their feet, is a vital part of our area's ecosystem. Greater Cincinnati Foundation investments are a tangible way to partner with the community and to achieve the aim of becoming a more equitable and inclusive region. The RFP is made possible by generous donors and designated funds. I am thrilled to announce that we have $800,000 dedicated to this initiative. Eligible organizations can request up to $50,000, allowing us to support at least 16 grants at the maximum amount. Here is a snapshot of the timeline for this RFP. Now, our process begins with a letter of intent, or LOI. The LOI is a preview for your project and what your intentions are for that program. We implemented this step to be responsive to our community partners and to use your time efficiently. We don't want anyone to complete a full application and spend valuable time if your application may not be competitive. So that's again why we use the LOI. Now, the LOI is due on Friday, July 26th at 5:00 p.m. We will notify applicants if they've been selected to submit a full application on August 23rd. And the deadline to submit a full application will be September 13th. So that gives you 3 weeks if you are selected to submit a full application. We will communicate final decisions in November and also release funding to awarded grantees. And we're confident that this will all happen before Thanksgiving. Now we will review the funding focus, the use of funds, and criteria. The purpose of the Safety Net RFP is to ensure that all people in our region have access to food, shelter, as well as increased access to well-integrated trauma-informed mental and behavioral health services. And we're going to talk about that some more. So we're going to talk about it in 3 questions. What does it mean to have or increase access? So GCF is looking to fund programs and projects that provide access to food for all people. That's regardless of their physical, social, and economic status. Access is the action of making food available, affordable, acceptable culturally, and safe to eat. I talked with someone who may be on our call today, and we were talking about a can of food. So if you have a potato, you used to make using a potato for your meal and you have a can of potatoes, you may look at that can of potatoes as, what am I to do with that? We want acceptance to culturally acceptable food. So that's what access looks like. GCF also will fund programs that provide access to safe and secure spaces that for people to stay that are marginalized communities in our region, with a focus on eliminating barriers and connecting people to services that offer a leg up. The next question: what's included in well-integrated trauma-informed care? Well-integrated trauma-informed care is an approach. It's an approach to healthcare and social services that recognizes the prevalence and impact of trauma on individuals' lives and integrates this understanding into all aspects of service delivery. This approach aims to create a safe, that word is very important, a safe and supportive environment that promotes healing and recovery. 6 key components include, again, safety. So we want to ensure that people feel physically and emotionally safe within the care setting. Trustworthiness and transparency. Building trust through clear communication and genuine transparency in your policies and procedures. It can also include peer support. So individuals with lived experience of trauma to provide support and share their recovery journeys. Another component is collaboration and mutuality, emphasizing partnership and leveling power differences between the staff and the people you serve. Empowerment, voice, and choice. And what that looks like is prioritizing people's strengths and providing them with a sense of control and autonomy in their care. And number 6, cultural, historical and gender issues. So recognizing and addressing the cultural, historical, and gender-related factors that influences individuals' experiences of trauma and healing. So basically, well-integrated care means these principles are embedded in every level of the organization, from leadership to direct service providers, ensuring a cohesive and comprehensive approach to trauma-informed practice. And our third question: what outcomes would align with this funding focus? We talked about this earlier: eliminating barriers that prevent access to food and shelter, and are providing direct mental and behavioral health services to marginalized communities. The use of funds may be awarded to support, expand, or strengthen existing programs, capital improvements, to launch a new program, and to build organization capacity, or even for general operating support. Funds cannot be used for campaigns, including but not limited to political or capital campaigns. Also, funding cannot be used for special one-time events or special events in general. So the criteria. The criteria we have outlined for this RFP includes the first 2 options on your screen, which shouldn't be much of a surprise. Organizations must be classified as tax exempt by the IRS, which is typically 501c3 status or government agency. Now, there is an asterisk there because we do allow organizations to utilize a fiscal agent, but you must provide the name for the fiscal agent, and I'll talk more about that shortly. Secondly, you must serve or be based in one of GCF's 8 county areas, which are listed on the screen. The third point, which is about our preferences, will be elaborated on during this presentation. And basically, beyond stating how your program aligns with the funding focus, I've listed some specific areas of preferences that should be crafted with the same amount of attention and care as you would for the alignment context. These components are what makes for a competitive proposal. And I'll just click through these so you can take another look at them. All right. So before I elaborate on those preferences, I'll define what a fiscal agent is. A fiscal agent or sponsor is a nonprofit organization that provides fiduciary oversight, financial management, and other administrative services to help build the capacity of charitable projects. Again, organizations not tax exempt can have a fiscal agent, and there is a section to identify if you're using a fiscal agent and their information within the LOI. Now let's get back to preferences. Okay, so most of us have seen this illustration by Tony Ruth. And while you're looking at this presentation, do you see the differences and similarities of each tile? So the top left tile, it shows inequality. The tree is clearly on one side, bending on one side versus the other. There's more fruit on one side of the tree and not the other. And although it would seem that the child could just go over to the other side, systemic barriers, often invisible, present access to the other side. The bottom left tile with equal size ladders that shows equality, but we all know that one size fits all is not an approach that will always work, and it will not improve the equity journey and growth we strive for. I know that by those one size fits all caps. They never fit my head. Anyways, the equity tile shows that the two ladders have been augmented to different heights, allowing for both to pick apples from the tree. However, the tree is still bent and leaning towards one side, and more apples are still on one side. It may not be perfect. Your approach may not be perfect, but equity is a process and a journey. Meeting people where they are versus providing the same tools is a racial equity lens approach, and continuing to look for ways to fix systems. So like in that last tile, which is called justice, both children have access to the same level of fruit. We're not expecting your organization to be perfect, but we want to see where you are in your racial equity journey. In the letter of intent and application, you will be asked to inform us and elaborate on how racial equity is integrated into your organization and programming. This is an opportunity that acknowledges areas for growth. It also highlights organization progress and programs, and it can be used to outline your goals. This can pertain both internal and external. Now, leaving this blank is not recommended. Even organizations operating in a predominantly white space have numerous opportunities to incorporate a racial equity perspective. This involves organizing their staff demographics, examining the reasons behind their predominantly white spaces, and gaining a deeper understanding of our country's history. We are interested in learning about your approach and how your organization, board, and our staff are addressing race and equity. We hope to see a comprehensive approach in your responses detailing how your organization addresses racial equity or plans to engage in this work. Now, here's a quick example to illustrate the difference between a weak, or maybe we can call it a lacking response, and also an example of a strong and compelling response in this section of the LOI. For this example, disaggregating and understanding were chosen, and I'll bring those up here. They were chosen by separate organizations and included in the explanation. So just looking at this, which explanation in your opinion appears to be weak, and which one seems to be strong? And I'll just give you a few seconds to read through that. Now, while length is not an indicator of quality, and it's not always an indicator of quality, in this case, the response on the right, as you read through it, it offers a more comprehensive explanation of how this organization disaggregates and analyzes data by race and ethnicity. And by doing so, they understand disparities and they're also learning why they exist. In contrast, the response on the left, though it mentions diversity, does not explicitly state how they understand disparities, despite having a majority BIPOC staff or knowing that most residents they serve identify as Black. It actually lacks details on how long they've been serving the community, whether the staff and our leadership or board have undergone racial equity training, and how they understand the community. Are they collecting data that informs their decision making when building programming? The left misses the how and the why. It focuses only on the who and what. I know I've been emphasizing this, but I emphasize it because it is a crucial aspect when it comes to crafting compelling, strong proposals. From the review committee standpoint, this is one of the most important areas, second to ensuring the proposal aligns with the RFP. I do want to plug, if I may, GCF's Racial Equity Matters sessions. You can find a link for those sessions in the chat to learn more about any upcoming trainings. I'll get this moved here. All right. So there is a section in the LOI for you to tell us about how your organization is community driven. We want to know if you involve your community members in the organization's decision making or programming. We want to know if you, click on that here, do you have community members with lived experience on your staff and board? Sorry about that. I'm going to jump back to that so you can see it all. We want to know if you have community members with lived experience on your staff and board, and also does your organization collect feedback from the people that you serve? Now, if you are selected to complete a full application, you will be asked about partnerships. During my conversations and experiences with past grant recipients, I enjoyed the collective impact of multiple organizations working to complete a goal. So this section can be used not just to list your partners, but also provide a brief context about the partnership and how it aligns with the funding priorities. Now we're going to talk about asset-based approach. So another section in the full application is called community opportunity, and it will ask, what is your community doing? It will ask, what in your community are you trying to change? Now, when it comes to asset-based approach, this is more of a overall tone. Um, and the main principle is, instead of looking at what a community needs or lacks, for better word, the approach focuses on utilizing the pre-existing assets in the community. In other words, the resources, the qualities that are already there. The approach facilitates the empowerment of individuals and communities by helping them identify and share the strengths, and then working together to create their own social innovations. And that's what we want to hear. We want to hear how you value the community and how you're working with the community rather than doing to the community. Organizations that work to strengthen and build on community assets like accessibility and storytelling capacity, and of course, eliminating barriers to build, not to fix, that's what will make for a competitive proposal. Next, we're going to talk about something most of us have heard several times, and that's SMART outcomes. Another section for organizations selected to submit a full application is called our Goals and Measures section. So goals should be driven by the SMART acronym. For example, sure that's popping up there. The goals should be specific and should be clearly defined. So think who, what, how, and why. Measurable goals should include things like, and these are examples, your target population, a percentage change, basically something that can be measured. Is it achievable? And we like to be inspirational and we like to be ambitious, but we also want to make sure that it's realistic. The goals that you list are realistic and you can realistically meet those outcomes. Is it relevant? Is there a need for the people that you serve, this program? Is it necessary? Do the people in the community need it? Again, that's working with versus doing to. Is your project or program important to the matter at hand? And for time bound, spell out the time frame. By summer 2025, we will complete this step, or by spring of 2026, we will remove that barrier. So let's talk about outcomes versus outputs. I will read examples directly from the slide. So this example is a program that we'll call Access to Mental Health Services. An output would be, well, they wrote 53% will report having better or excellent health. This is good because it's measurable. However, it's missing the end results and impact. The outcome is what we want to see as a result of achieving a better or excellent mental behavioral health status. So an outcome, as you can see here, by fall of 2025, 40% of participants will develop tools to manage their mental health and improve stability in at least one area of life, either be in housing, employment, or social relationships. This outcome fits all points. It is specific, measurable, achievable versus just aspirational. It's relevant because it's needed in the community. It's time bound and it includes results. So now it's your turn. And I have two examples on the screen. And I'm going to ask if you would take time using the chat. I'm gonna move this off so I can see that. Perfect. Okay, so which example would you say after you read this is an output versus an outcome? So if you would add that into the chat, which of these two examples is an output versus an outcome? And we'll give you about a minute or two. And of course, my screen, there we go. I can take that off. I can see here. Okay. 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 I'm seeing some adding to that. Okay. I like that. We'll give time for a few more to come in. All right. So if you chose the one on the right, you are correct. Okay. Now, to make it align with the SMART acronym, the applicant does need to add a time frame to it, but we can see that there is an end result. We can see that they are receiving case management support to gain financial and permanent housing stability. That permanent housing stability is that end result. And like some of you had mentioned, um, that if they add by when, then they will reach the actual SMART goal. So I hope that was helpful in understanding what we're looking for in outcomes versus outputs. So thank you everyone that participated in that chat there. Appreciate it. All right. Oh, and there's my official. Okay. So with that, we are ready to learn more about GCF's online grant making system Founded. I get to switch it over to Hannah Hilditch to tell us more. Take it away, Hannah.
everybody. Thank you, Tara. So, as Tara introduced me, I am the Community Investments Coordinator here at GCF, and I am doing all of the administrative work and pressing all the buttons on the back end to make sure your applications make it through our system to our reviewers and review committee members. So, when you're having an issue with logging in or accessing your application, trying to figure out how to submit, have questions about attachments, all of those questions can be directed to me, anything logistical, and then anything content related, like will this program be a good fit? Which program should I pick between these two? Like those types of content questions should be directed towards Tara. So just to clarify. And as Tara said, I'll be talking through the submission process for the RFP. And as Tara said, the first step is the letter of intent, the LOI. So after this presentation and you're so inspired and you're rearing to go apply for this LOI, you can find the link. It's gcfdn.org/RFP. This is also found in the RFP document PDF that's on our website. So there's 2 quick access points there, and it'll take you to a screen that looks like the screenshot there on the left, with our logo and some instructions on the right-hand side. To clarify, there's been a lot of staff turnover I've noticed at nonprofits lately, and there's been a lot of confusion over who has the login rights for Foundant and other systems like it. So to clarify, when you're logging on for the first time, if you have been in our system before and you have your login information, you're good to go. You can just log in. If you know that your organization has applied with us before and has an existing organization account, but you yourself are maybe new to the organization or have just transitioned roles, you don't have a login, please contact us to set up a user account for you underneath your organization. If you don't do that, you can make another organization account for the same, and so there'll be 2 in our system, which is not the end of the world by any means, but sometimes it can mean that your organization history is not visible on each of your separate accounts, and it sometimes gets confusing when we get to the payment side of grant making. So just be sure if your organization has an account, but you need one yourself, just contact me at werisetogether@gcfdn.org. The link's right there. Or if you get to our login page, my colleague, Jenny Geisheimer, is also somebody that you can contact about that. And we'll be quick to respond, have you set up in no time, and you'll be good to go. And then lastly, if you have no organization account, you're brand new, or you've just never applied through our system before, and you yourself don't have a user account, you can click that button that says create new account, and it will run you through the whole process of entering your information, and then you'll be good to go to apply. And in any case, if you have questions about this, feel free to just contact me by email. So now you're logged in, you're ready to submit an LOI. You'll see what looks like the top picture here, your applicant dashboard. You'll be able to see historical requests from this page, and you'll be able to return to this page to access your LOI if you need to work on it in more than one sitting. But if you're applying for the first time, you're going to go up to the top of your screen and hit that apply button. It'll take you to a list of our open applications, and you're looking for one that says GCF responsive application here. And you'll hit the apply button on the right-hand side. I just got a question about this the other day, so I'm also going to pitch, do not hit the preview button and begin filling out the LOI, because there won't be a save button. And so it was so heartbreaking to have someone do a whole bunch of work and then not be able to submit it. So definitely make sure you're hitting the apply button specifically. And so once you've done that, you're in the LOI. It'll be self-explanatory. You can go through all of the questions one by one. At the bottom of the screen, there'll be a save button if you want to come back to it. And then when you're like, all my T's and I's are crossed, dotted, I'll hit the submit button and we'll get it from there. And then one thing to note too is just to make sure in the request category that you're selecting the safety net RFP. I say this because we're also concurrently running the environmental sustainability RFP currently. And so sometimes if you mislabel it, it might end up in the wrong batch, which we don't want at all. So be sure you're hitting safety net RFP. For the LOI itself, there are no attachments required at this point in time. So for the LOI, it's just the questions that are written in the form that you need to fill out. But in the case that you do get invited to submit a full application, you'll have additional application questions to fill out. All of your LOI responses will copy over to that application, so you don't need to fill them out twice. And then you'll have 4 different documents that we ask to be, we'll ask to be submitted with the full application. So the your 990 or most recent audit, an income and balance statement for the past 2 years, if possible, or if you're brand new, as up to date as possible is great. Your project budget and your organizational demographics. The last two, the project budgets and the demographics, will also have a template that you can use in the application itself. So you can just type it in, or you can use the downloadable template that's provided. So that the application deadline is going to be the 13th of September. But just to reiterate, at the LOI stage, there's no attachments required. And the LOI itself is due on the 26th of July. And then one last note, if you're using a fiscal agent, as Tara mentioned at the beginning of this presentation, you're likely to use a fiscal agent if you yourself don't have 501c3 status. Or in a different case where maybe you're partnering and you have someone who is managing funds, that kind of situation, those are very rare. So most of the time it's if you are working on a project that's charitable, but you don't have the status itself, you can partner with an organization to serve as your fiduciary management. In the case that you're using a fiscal agent, at the LOI will ask you to provide their name, their EIN of the organization, and the contact information for that organization. At the application stage, you'll have one more attachment that'll be due, and that is the fiscal agent's income and balance sheet as well. And I think that was it for me. I'm going to turn it back over to Tara to talk about follow-up reporting.
All right, thanks, Hannah. Okay, and we just have a few slides and then we're going to get to those questions and answers. So if you are funded, you will be required to complete 2 follow-up reports. The first report is time for you and I to chat, either Teams or sometimes I'll come in person if I haven't visited with you, but it's very informal. The second is a written final follow-up report. And in both reports, we will ask for you to provide updates on the project's progress, note any changes, or maybe even pivots to the program. We also ask that you share basic metrics such as the number of individuals served and how the funds were leveraged. Additionally, we want to know if you are on track with the goals and the performance outcomes you originally set for your program. And also, this is an opportunity to share some inspirational stories and responses that have emerged through the program's development or as a result of the program. Now, this slide here, I do really need to emphasize the tips on this slide. The RFP, which is on our website, and the frequently asked questions, those are your primary guide. And we'll include a link to the frequently asked questions in the chat. But again, the RFP, it'll go over what I've spoken to you before, and those questions are your guide. So your application, okay, is what's going to speak for you. It's the primary means of expressing yourself. Unless a specific situation occurs, we will not call you for additional information. So please make sure that you double check what you submitted. And also, if you are selected to move forward, that you include all the required attachments and required materials. After submission, changes to the application are challenging. So again, please do your due diligence before you hit that submit button. Now, GCF, we do welcome invitations to regularly scheduled learning events throughout the year. So if you have things like open houses or community stakeholder meetings, please let me know. I would be happy to learn more, and hopefully my schedule allows attend your open house and meetings. And GCF staff, we will do our best to respond in a timely manner throughout this process. Now, we will say, if you call me on July 26th, might be a little hard to address. So if you've got questions brewing up, give me a call as soon as they come about, or email, and I will respond to you in a timely manner. With that, it is time for questions and answers. You'll see our information there on the screen again. So I'll leave that up so that you can ask questions. And I'll leave that up for a little bit. But also, this information is in the RFP on our website, so you can go there as well. Yeah, that way, if you have questions, you can come off mute and we will answer those. I'm going to actually end slide so I can see faces. If you want to share your screen, it's not required. Oh, mostly everyone is. I can see everybody. Hi, everybody. So glad to be able to see you. So please, Bella, do you want to start? Because there were probably a lot of questions in the chat.
I've got 4 folks, and I did write down your names and your questions as well. If I can just go ahead and call so that it's sort of sequential. And then Lindsay Jarvis just came in with another one as well. So the first one that I had was Nick Zingarelli asked about site visits. Nick, are you able to come off mute real quick and ask that question?
Yeah, just curious, after the applications are submitted and before decisions are made, will there be a site visit for everybody that is invited to apply? Or will there be like a further narrowing for site visits that then come in the in-between, or do site visits not happen at all?
Site visits do not happen during the application phase. So that's why I was saying earlier, your letter of intent and application, that is what speaks for you. So please make sure that's as thorough as possible. Very good question, Nick.
And then the next one, I've got Todd Provenzano with Best Point, had a question, sort of a programmatic request. Todd, are you able to come off mute?
I am. I appreciate all the information. Thank you.
Hi, Todd. Uh-oh, Todd, you sound a little muffled.
Shut this up. I did type my question in the chat. I think Isabella could default it.
I think he said he typed this question at the
Yeah,
top.
I can just, yep, I can absolutely read that out, Todd. Yeah. So Todd had asked before if Best Point is planning a capital campaign, and but specifically they're planning to expand to a new site that will increase their capacity to serve from 135 to 1,000 youth and add mental health services. It'll be a new construction project, but he's kind of thinking about the grant application programmatically and how, if I'm getting this correct, Todd, like how would be the best sort of request to really speak a little bit more to that programmatic expansion so that they don't get excluded based on the concurrently running capital campaign. Do I have that correct, Todd?
Yes.
Okay, I think I heard him say yes. Yes, so if you are submitting for a program, when you submit your letter of intent, be sure that your program is specifically discussed in your letter of intent. You can just leave the capital campaign out of your responses to our questions, because again, this RFP cannot fund a capital campaign. So only speak to your program or project in your LOI. Does that help you, Todd?
Yes, thank you very much.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Next up, we've got Stacy Berger, was wondering about their central access point hotline. Stacy, are you able to come off mute really quick?
I am, thank you. I just wanted to find out, in years past, we have applied for the safety net and it went strictly to shelter operations. This year, however, I'm thinking applying for the Central Access Point helpline, which is the one number people can call to get a shelter bed in Hamilton County. So it would be providing access to shelter. Does that sound viable to apply for that LOI?
Okay, so Stacy, is it providing the actual housing or is it strictly referral?
No, it's placing people into shelter beds.
We can talk more offline.
Sure.
I'll send you a link and we can talk about it some more offline because I want to make sure I have a full understanding. So yeah,
Happy to.
I'll be in touch.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome, Stacy. And I'm going to make sure I write
And
that down, Stacy, because I'll
I've got
send-
you as well,
you-
Tara. I'm pretty familiar with the cap line, so.
Thank you.
I'm
And I
writing
think
it
Tara
down
Keith
too.
is on here. She knows that we're
Yep.
you and I are joined at the hip. So
That's right,
Thank
especially
you.
today.
Thank you.
The
Bella.
next question, no worries. The next question I have is from Lindsay Jarvis. Lindsay, are you
Yes.
able to come off mute as well?
Yes, and thank you for hosting this today.
Oh, you're
My
welcome.
question is, given that are open to supporting general operating and existing programs, as well as ones that increase capacity and increase the amount of services or provided or people served, is
Mhm.
there a preference from the review committee as to whether new or expanding is somewhat preferred over general operating or existing?
No, there is no preference. So with general operating, what we're looking, if your overall mission aligns with this RFP, general operating dollars, there's no preference. Now, if you had a completely different set of goals and you were asking for funding, then yeah, that would not apply. But if you're providing access to food, shelter, providing access to well-informed trauma, care for mental behavioral health, then yes, please apply for general operating. There would be no preference.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks, Lindsay.
And that's all the ones that I got sort of caught up on that I was keeping track of. Did I
Okay.
miss anybody, or does anybody else want to come off of mute and ask any further questions as
Yeah,
well?
we still have 11 minutes, so please, if you
You
have
did great, Tara.
I was trying because I wanted to make sure I got it in, but we had time for questions and answers. So yay.
Hello, this is
Hi.
Gina Marsh with Community Action Agency. I just had a question
Gina.
about the letter of intent. And I haven't submitted one of these before, and there may be some things once I get in the portal I can look at, but are there any limits as to, you know, the length or other parameters for what that letter should look like?
There are character limits. Hannah, are you familiar offhand of what I'm quite certain that it shouldn't be too restrictive. But I do know there are character limits. If for
Yes.
some reason, Hannah, are you there?
Yeah, I was just
Okay.
gonna say there are character limits on individual questions themselves, and it'll list it at the bottom and show you like your character count as you type. I think for like short form questions, it's about 250 characters, and then the longer questions can be up to 2,500, but it just depends on the question.
Thank you.
And if you exceed any of the character limits, it'll tell you that like you can't submit it. So it's pretty obvious if you end up going over.
Thanks, Hannah.
Ooh, actually, now that I've mentioned it, I will say too, if you are the kind of person that prefers writing out question or answers in like a Word document and then copying them over to our application, it's been a problem a couple times where people have copied things over and then it's cut off without them realizing it. So like their sentence will just stop in the middle of a sentence and they didn't notice. So I will say like in the specific case of you copying things outside of Foundit and plugging them in, sometimes it doesn't copy everything over. So just be really mindful of that if you're ever using Word.
Thank you, Hannah. That's
Thank
very
you.
helpful.
I have a question.
Yes.
This is Cheryl Raj Bandari. Can you see me? Okay.
Hi, Cheryl.
So I run Heartfelt Tidbits, and thank you for your time today. But my question is, so what we do with clients is when we meet them and they're struggling with housing and we know they're homeless or whatever, we start looking for housing solutions like the shelters as well as reach out to Community Action Agency, New Americans, and then, you know, end up with the right place at the right time, and then later, you know, start looking at where can we put them as they come out of this temporary housing situation. If they're already in housing, how can we prevent the eviction from happening? So regardless of which situation we're in, then the second piece of that is that we then analyze, okay, what do we need to do from a case management perspective to keep this from happening again? So is it, you know, if there's mental health issues or trauma related issues, it's making the person depressed. We spend a lot of time creating programs for that. We work with them on job readiness. We have a program for that, and put one-on-one volunteers. If it's English, then obviously we work on that. So does that qualify for this type of grant? Or I know in the past I've presented, applied for the grant and didn't get it, and it was related more around what I was asking for was the trauma-based work and program that we'd like to implement, and actually have a person assigned to that versus me trying to manage it. And so that was my question. You know, we're not paying rent unless it's an extreme situation. I try not to pay rent, but we are definitely working in that space.
Yes, and are you providing that direct service? Because it sounded like from your explanation, you're providing the direct service.
Yes, and so we work with the partners as well, like Community Action Agency, the New American. I mean, we're engaging with them, helping with the application. You know, I attend the eviction prevention calls to all the housing calls to work on making sure their voices are heard in
Right.
those calls, what the struggles are.
Okay, it sounds like a little bit of both. I'd like to talk to you offline as well. I will say for
Okay.
everyone, if you are a direct service provider, then yes, you do qualify. I do want to talk to you more offline if you don't mind, because I'm hearing a
Okay.
little bit of both referral and possible direct. So yeah, we'll discuss more offline, Cheryl.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And is your number on the or email on in the chat or
It is, but
presentation?
I'll reach out to you and send you a
Okay.
link so that we can chat virtual. I'll send you a link for a
Okay.
virtual meeting. Yeah.
And then we have one from Abraham Brandenberry.
Oh,
I'm sorry if
okay.
I butchered that last name. I apologize, but if you're able to come off of mute and ask
Sure.
your question.
Yeah. So my name is Abe Brandyberry from Cincinnati Urban Promise. So Gloria Walker with NAMI is in our space. They rent from us. And we're working on collaborating together on some things. We do mostly youth development programming, and Gloria has her Youth Move program. I can see where we can both probably apply for this grant individually, but then also see how we can do it together. And I'm just trying to figure out what you suggest would be a stronger application, one in a tight partnership, or one where it's like we're mentioning each other in the applications and but we both apply. Just trying to figure out what the best strategy would be in your eyes.
So Abe, it sounds like it's the same programming and that you're both doing the same work, or are working on the same program.
Well, I think we would be using each other. We both run our own programs, but I think that we would be potentially sharing students, or we're reaching out to each other's programs.
I would say
Yeah.
Abe, and then Gloria, I think you have your hand up as well, and this this may be the time that we have left because I want to respect everyone's time. So before I answer your question, if you do have questions after this, I'm going to be around, so please email me, or, you know, I will make sure I get everyone's question answered. So, so please don't feel left out. But Abe, I would encourage you, if possible, to collaborate because you would basically be competing against each other.
Yeah, and I,
So
and I don't
yeah.
necessarily want to do that. So
No, and I'm sure Gloria is not as well, but that would be my encouragement if it's the
okay,
program you're working with the same individuals, same people to collaborate together. Yes, Gloria, you had your hand up, so I wanted to acknowledge if you had an additional question. And you can come off mute if you do. If not, that's okay. If not, I want to try to grab one more. It's 1:57. Let's see. Laura Laura Mosqueda. And then Laura, I am so sorry. My last name is Behan and it's hard. So if I mispronounce your last name, I do apologize. Did you have a specific question that you wanted to ask?
I think it's gonna be one that can you hear me?
I can, Laura, yes.
Okay. I think it's gonna be one of those ones based on some of the answers to your other questions. That's probably gonna be a better one-on-one conversation. So
Okay.
if I could have you reach out to me, that'd be great.
I will, Laura.
Thank you.
And you're welcome. You're welcome. Thank you. And Gloria, it looks like your video is not working. Yes, we will reach out to you, Gloria. Okay, it's 1:58. Does anyone want to sneak in one more question?
Yeah, I've got a really quick one. I'm
Yeah.
off video. My bandwidth is a little low.
That's all
At the
right,
beginning of the webinar, you mentioned that there's the renewal option in year 2. And I wanted to see if that meant that there's the potential for 2 awards, one in 24 and one in 25, or if the total award would be split between the 2 years.
That is a terrific question, Laura, and a perfect question to end our workshop on. I mean, that's a terrific one. So if you're a recipient of the safety net RFP, if you're a grant recipient, you will receive funding up to that amount. Now, whatever that up to amount is, you'll receive that in one payment. Then in 2025, you can request that same amount again. So for instance, for example, if you were approved for $50,000 in 2024, you will receive $50,000. Then in 2025, you can request another. So in total, up to $100,000 can be granted. Long
Awesome,
way to get to
fantastic.
that, but there you go.
Yeah.
You're welcome. Thank you, Lauren. So with that, I really appreciate everyone for joining. I hope that this was helpful. Again, this presentation, this workshop has been recorded. We will get it up on our website for you to rewatch if you want to see my face again. But if you have questions, please reach out to me. I am happy to help. Technical questions about using Foundin, please reach out to Hannah. I hope that you enjoy this cooler weather. I know I am, and I look forward to reading your letters of intent. Thank you, everyone. Goodbye.